General Hospital spoilers for Friday. June 6 teases that Nina has finally confessed, an admission that not only shakes Port Charles to its core but also ignites an unprecedented political and familial storm. What started as a private confession quickly becomes one of the craziest events in recent times, as Nina reveals the entire truth about her covert relationship with Drew. Her role in facilitating insider trading, and, worse yet, how she indirectly contributed to the distortion of medical information regarding Willow in Germany. This confession is not just a shock to the legal system, but a devastating blow to everything Carly and Michael are trying to protect. In the blink of an eye, from being the investigators, the truth-tellers, Carly and Michael are suddenly thrust into the center of a much larger conspiracy they're unprepared to face. The story is no longer just about personal betrayal. With Nina's confession, the entire power balance in the battle between families, underground organizations, and the political system in Port Charles is completely overturned. Nina not only confirms illicit relationships but also reveals that she was coerced into cooperating by the forces behind Drew, including Sidwell. Which places Carly and Michael in an extremely dangerous position. Now, what they hold isn't just a few isolated pieces, but the key to exposing an entire financial crime syndicate and large-scale political manipulation. This not only makes them targets for counterattacks from the remaining forces but also pushes them directly into conflict with those who will stop at nothing to silence anyone who knows too much. The new political adjustment, the consequences of Nina's confession, is warping every concept of safety, morality, family, and truth to the breaking point. Carly, who has always been strong and in control of every situation, now must admit that she and her son are entering a war that could transcend all personal boundaries. Michael, while putting all his efforts into taking down Drew in court, now faces the possibility of being attacked by those who were once pulling the strings behind the scenes. Every move they make is now under surveillance, every piece of information they possess is a valuable commodity, and every relationship around them could be exploited or destroyed. Nina's confession is not just a truth revealed, it is the catalyst for a series of overwhelming events, a heavy blow to everything that was left of the old order. Characters who once seemed irrelevant are now appearing in investigations. Secrets that were buried and thought to be forgotten are beginning to resurface, and in the chaos, Carly and Michael, the ones seeking justice, are now being pushed into a position where they could lose everything. Their family, their reputations, and even their safety are on the line. Every misstep now could be their last. And that's the latest shock, not what Nina did, but the aftermath of her speaking the truth. A truth that was exposed too late. At a time when the line between justice and destruction is so thin that a single misstep could bury everything. Cody and Molly are silently embarking on a journey neither fully understands. But neither can escape. From casual conversations in the courthouse hallways, to the accidental times they find themselves facing complicated cases together, to lingering glances that last a little too long, all of it has created a simmering, slow yet intense bond between two people who seem to have nothing in common. Molly, always serious, orderly, and living a structured life, is being unsettled by Cody, the man once labeled reckless, chaotic, and dangerous. And conversely, in Cody's eyes, something changes every time he looks at Molly. He is no longer the adventurer who lived for the moment, he is beginning to think about more serious, sustainable things he never thought he could crave. The scary part isn't that they're getting closer, but how this relationship is forming, in a primal, uncontrollable, and magnetic way. Cody isn't trying to approach Molly the traditional way. He doesn't charm her with words or expensive gifts. Instead, he appears as a stark contrast she cannot deny. As for Molly, despite trying to deny her feelings and keep herself in check, she finds herself increasingly drawn to the freedom and raw instinct in Cody, something she's spent a long time avoiding to maintain the image of the ideal woman in society. As their closeness grows, it starts to shake the long-established orders in Port Charles. They stand on opposite ends of the moral spectrum, one belongs to the law, while the other was once outside the system's boundaries. So, as these two worlds draw closer together, an undercurrent of opposition begins to form. Family, friends, colleagues, everyone starts noticing, questioning, even warning. But this only pulls Cody and Molly deeper into each other, as if the prohibition itself intensifies the emotions they are experiencing. From an emotional perspective, this is no longer just a casual affair. Cody is no longer the guy bouncing from one relationship to another. With Molly, he is slowing down, listening. Even asking questions about the future, something he once considered a luxury. And Molly, who once planned her life with rigid logic, is starting to break down the bricks of the solid wall she built around her heart. With Cody, she can be herself, not the prosecutor, not the perfect daughter. Not the ideal woman, but just a person learning how to breathe, love, and live for the present. The obsession between them is no longer just in their private thoughts but is spreading through the links in their surrounding relationships. Every action they take begins to cause a domino effect, disrupting existing bonds. Molly's family can't accept her having feelings for someone like Cody. Cody's friends warn him about letting emotions go too far with someone from the system they once resented. But they both remain silent. Because, amidst all the noise, only the presence of each other brings them peace. Their story is also part of a larger change unfolding in Port Charles, a transformative time where old boundaries are gradually being erased. Cody and Molly's relationship is proof of one of the craziest ideas, that love can blossom between two worlds not only different but once opposed. And that is exactly what makes them one of the most magnetic couples, not because of glamour, but because of the boldness and sincerity in every look, every gesture. The media will soon take notice. Questions will be raised. Doubts will grow. But none of this will stop them, because the very chaos is what's leading them to each other. And when this couple steps into the light, Port Charles will need to brace itself for an unpredictable, uncontrollable relationship that cannot be denied. A love that is both the antidote to their shared conflicted pasts and the spark for unprecedented power struggles, moral dilemmas, and emotional conflicts. Drew is spiraling into an unprecedented state of collapse as he realizes that the entire wall of power, reputation, and manipulation he has built over the years is beginning to crumble in the most brutal way. Michael, once a close family member, has shed the family mask to become a ruthless opponent. Diane, who had supported Drew in many key trials, is now leading a meticulous legal attack, leaving no stone unturned. What terrifies Drew is not just the mounting evidence, but the speed at which everything is unfolding. An unstoppable tidal wave is crashing through his life, threatening to bury everything he once believed was untouchable. Michael is no longer the naive young man he once was, he has become a sharp strategist with an unnerving calm. Drew's shady financial records, under-the-table money transfers, his connection to Sidwell and Brennan, the man suspected of being behind several federal money laundering schemes, are all being meticulously pieced together. Diane misses no details. From investment histories, encrypted email connections, to secret meetings tracked by undercover witnesses Michael has quietly planted. Drew, who once thought he could manipulate the law to hide the truth, now finds himself facing something he was never prepared for, the brutal exposure of justice. What's worse? One of the bombshell pieces of evidence Michael holds, that Drew was behind bribing a judge to alter a custody ruling, is about to be revealed. A financial transaction has been traced and connected to a figure in the New York State judiciary. When this truth comes to light, Drew will not only face civil charges but could also be criminally prosecuted, facing decades behind bars. This is no longer a battle for custody of Wiley and Amelia. It has turned into a fight for survival to remove Drew from the entire power structure in Port Charles, both politically and in the business and family communities. Even worse, Willow is beginning to sense the tidal wave of truth crashing down on her. She no longer sees Drew as the man who rescued her from Michael. She is now questioning all the promises, all the stories, and all the blind decisions she once supported. Every step Michael takes in the investigation highlights Willow's naivety and weakness in trusting the wrong person. And Drew, instead of protecting the relationship, is pushing it further apart every day as he is caught up in a whirlwind of lies and severe betrayals. Willow is no longer naive, she is watching, listening, and preparing to distance herself from the seemingly safe shell that Drew once created. In the darkness, Drew begins to panic. Constant calls to his lawyer, secret meetings with media advisors, and frantic attempts to cover up investments are no longer working. The system he once controlled has turned its back on him. Close friends, former business partners, even key figures on the city council are silent, as though they've sniffed out the coming storm and no one wants to go down with Drew's sinking ship. He is isolated in his own stronghold, suffocating in the rooms that used to be the center of decision-making. The obsession grows. Drew can't sleep. He imagines being handcuffed in front of the press, Michael standing in court with evidence in hand, and his unshakable integrity on full display. He imagines Willow crying. But not out of sadness, but out of regret when she realizes she has been on the wrong side. Drew is haunted by the vision of a shattered life, no love, no power, no way out. He sees himself, the man who once thought he could control everything, now becoming a prisoner of his own mistakes. But the most brutal realization is the harsh truth that is slowly becoming clear. This is no longer Michael's revenge, but a cleansing. Michael is doing what the system refuses to do, removing Drew like a toxic cell from the body of Port Charles. And in this absolute isolation, Drew realizes for the first time that everything he built was never truly founded on anything solid, just illusions wrapped around a soul full of manipulation. Now, these illusions are dissolving. And what remains is a man panicking, alone, and about to be destroyed by the very truth he thought he could hide forever. The confrontation between Carly and Jason is no longer just a temporary argument, but the climax of a long chain of suppressed wounds, unresolved torment, and a quiet yet profound shift in their once unbreakable relationship. Standing in the room where they once shared secrets, strategies, and pain, the air now feels so thick with tension that you can almost hear each labored breath, each word carrying the cold blade of suspicion. Carly looks at Jason not as her confidant, but with a mixture of anger, disappointment, and fear, not just for what's happening with Sasha, but because Jason is becoming someone she no longer understands. Jason, on the other hand, stands there like a block of ice, seemingly unmoved, but inside, there's a simmering earthquake. He knows Carly is waiting for him to provide an answer, to show support, to give her a sign that they are still on the same side, but he can't. For the first time in many years, Jason feels that if he lets his guard down, if he lets his heart lead instead of his mind, someone will pay the price, and that someone could be Sasha. He can't back down, he can't let emotions guide him. And he certainly can't let Carly dictate the terms while everything hangs in the balance. His cold tone, his ruthless decisiveness, makes Carly feel like she's facing a stranger wearing the face of the man she once trusted most. The tensions can no longer be hidden. Carly slams her hand on the table, demanding answers about Jason's true relationship with Sasha, why he's keeping a secret she believes they should both share. She brings up the mistakes of the past, the times Jason chose silence over fighting, withdrawal over confrontation, and now, once again, he is leaving her to face a nightmare they should both bear. But Jason doesn't answer with remorse. He insists that some things can't be shared, that Sasha needs to be protected in a different way, not through emotions, not through Carly's compassion, but through strategy and sacrifice. Carly hears those words like a blade cutting through her heart. She once believed Jason was the one person in the world who could understand her without needing explanations, the one who would stand beside her no matter the moral, legal, or social boundaries. But now, Jason has become the one person who makes her feel alone, even when standing beside him. She no longer knows who she's fighting for, or why, or whether it matters to try to save someone like Sasha, while the people around her, including Jason, have accepted sacrificing what's right for a bigger plan that she can't accept. Sasha, in the meantime, remains at the heart of all this turmoil. She is the embodiment of injured innocence, of a soul that has experienced too much loss. And she is also the clearest mirror of the rift between Carly and Jason. Every wrong decision they make could push Sasha to the edge. But every emotionally driven choice could drag her deeper into even more dangerous waters. Carly wants to take Sasha out of Port Charles, take her somewhere safe. and help her start a life without needing anyone, not even Jason. Meanwhile, Jason wants Sasha to stay, to face those who threaten her, and even use her as bait to bring Drew, Sidwell, and Brennan into the light. And that's the breaking point neither of them can fix. In a world where loyalty is considered the measure of friendship, Carly and Jason stand at opposite ends of the battlefield. They're not just arguing over Sasha, they're questioning their entire relationship, the long history that once kept them united. Once again, Carly faces the cruel reality. The one person she never thought would betray her is now using silence and calculation to push her out of his heart. And Jason, though he hasn't said it out loud, is beginning to feel that the distance between them has grown too vast to be filled with any apology or sacrifice. Port Charles is changing, and with it, every alliance, every bond. Everything once thought eternal is now shaking. Carly and Jason, the symbol of unconditional friendship, have now become living proof of the cruelty of time and circumstance. And in all this change, the only ones who can prove whether there's still hope are not Sasha, not Sunny, but themselves. But is it too late? Has the crack grown too deep to heal? Or is this the beginning of an entirely new chapter, where they must learn to exist without being each other's anchor anymore? The meeting between Curtis and Jordan is not simply the reunion of two people with a complicated emotional past, but the beginning of a powerful alliance, born from the ruins of loss, betrayal and resentment. In the context of Port Charles being covered by the darkness of Sidwell, a manipulator of the entire system from government economy to law with sinister and inhumane tricks, Curtis and Jordan understand that without timely intervention, this city will fall into the hands of an uncontrollable force. They come together not to heal the past, but to establish a future together, a future where silence will no longer be complicit, and criminals will have no place to hide. Jordan, once a police chief with a strong belief in law and order, is no longer bound by rules and limits. She acts with greater freedom and acumen than ever before, knowing that fighting someone like Sidwell requires tools that are not conventional. She is a tactical mind, has seen and survived many evil plots. And now she uses all that experience to serve a single goal, to take down Sidwell. And Curtis, a man who has suffered many shocks in his life, from losing the ability to walk to the breakdown of his marriage, is returning as a fearless warrior. He understands the underworld, knows how to dive deep into the most corrupt layers of society to bring to light truths that no one dares to acknowledge. Their union is not accidental, but inevitable. Curtis with his extensive connections and ability to operate intelligently in the criminal world, Jordan with his strategic acumen and sharp thinking, they form an unstoppable pair. They quietly drew a new map of power in Port Charles, began collecting data on the financial lines that Sidwell manipulated, planted people inside the shell companies to find weaknesses, and especially used Jordan's old political connections to turn the tables from the inside. They did not launch a noisy war, but each of their moves was as precise as a calculated chess piece. Sidwell's danger lay not only in the power or money he held, but also in the secrets he used to manipulate even those once considered untouchable, from judges, prosecutors, to people in the tycoon world. Therefore, Curtis and Jordan knew that to win, they had to be willing to sacrifice more, accepting to walk the thin line between law and justice. And that is why this alliance is not only scary but also extremely effective, because they do not fight for fame or personal gain, they fight for the belief in the truth. The deeper they get into this war, the more complicated the relationship between Curtis and Jordan becomes. Despite their distance and professionalism in every action, in the glances, in the exchanges of information, in the coordination of risky plans, it is easy to see a connection returning, a trust that does not need words. No one else understands each other on that level. The caution, the obsession, the nightmares of the past, the fear that if one day they fail, the whole city will pay. They do not talk about feelings, but it is their actions together that prove the bond between them is stronger than any romantic relationship has ever existed. And while Sidwell still believes he has the upper hand, controlling all the fluctuations in Port Charles, Curtis and Jordan, in the shadows, on the fringes of the political light, are gradually tightening the siege. From the smallest clues to the largest financial chains, they are skillfully peeling back the layers of falsehood that Sidwell has created. One day, the truth will be revealed. And all of Port Charles will witness the collapse of one of the most dangerous empires that has ever existed in the city. And when that day comes, the names Curtis and Jordan will no longer be associated with failed relationships, but with symbols of quiet justice, people who chose to act when others chose to remain silent. And together they changed the fate of a city.